In this video, I will look over the realism and liberalism theories, the actors involved in this conflict, the internal conflict, and the level of analysis behind the Afghanistan War. This war began in 2001 after Al-Qaeda attacked the World Trade Center in the United States. Al-Qaeda is a terrorist group that is harbored in Afghanistan. After the attack occurred, President Bush asked Afghanistan to turn in the leader of Al-Qaeda. Since Afghanistan failed to cooperate with the United States, the Afghanistan War broke out. Along with this first conflict of terrorism, many other conflicts have been added between the two states. This is the reasoning why this war is still going on today in 2021. The Afghanistan War highlights both the liberal and realism theories from Module 1. The realism theory seeks power over all else. They seek to have the most power and seek hegemony over all other states. When making decisions, they do not care about any other state other than their own, so they will put themselves first. While liberalism theory works to maintain democratic peace with other states, they tend to work together as one. For the majority of the Afghanistan War, the U.S. actions support realism. After Obama's win in 2008, he had promised to protect the people in his country from any terrorist. The main goal of his foreign policy was the use of anarchy. He highlighted that the strongest, most powerful country will survive. In this case, he was meaning the United States. He promised to not only enter a war in which he could supply enough troops, but he also promised to bring back peace to his country and earn respect from all others around the world. His decisions made in Afghanistan was to prove that the United States was a powerful state, and he wanted to gain hegemony over all others. With Obama's request for an increase in troops in Afghanistan and the drone strikes that he had ordered against Afghanistan, Obama's actions had proven that he had followed the realism theory. While realism was most often seen, liberalism can also be seen. Throughout the Afghanistan War, NATO has been involved to create as much peace as possible between the two states. With NATO implemented into this war, conflict between the states was made to be limited. NATO was supposed to be involved equally to both sides, and it was not to have any allies. In this case, NATO was not successful in limiting conflict as NATO supported the United States in this war way more than they supported Afghanistan. By supporting the United States, NATO created a larger conflict between Afghanistan, partially being the reason that the United States is still involved. This ultimately proves that most of the actions throughout this war were following the realism theory and set to put themselves higher up. Along with Module 2, we can look at the actors involved in this international event. First, there is the United States and Afghanistan. These two would be state actors who influence the outcome of any situation they're in. For this situation, the actions that each state had to make was to influence the outcome of the war. While the non-state actor would be NATO. This is because NATO was supposed to be a political influence while not being an ally to either state. Referring back to Module 3 and international conflict, the Afghanistan War would be classified as a limited war. The United Nations was created to provide a global structure through which states can settle conflicts with less force, but it's not always successful. In cases where it's not successful, war is involved, and so is the Security Council. The Security Council helps justify whether the war is determined legal or not, according to the just war theory. The Afghanistan War would be classified as a limited war. This is because the U.S. wanted to prevent Afghanistan from harboring terrorists, specifically Al-Qaeda, after they had attacked the World Trade Center. This war would be called unconventional conflict since it was following the act of terrorism. This made the war legal according to the just war theory. The United States President asked the Afghanistan government for the location of the Al-Qaeda leaders, but they had failed to cooperate. Without the cooperation of this task, the United States implemented war to Afghanistan's unwillingness to cooperate civilly. Due to all of these circumstances, the Security Council would support the motive of war. This is because it would be considered legal through just war theory behind the act of terrorism. According to international conflict, the Afghanistan War was an ideological war between governments and beliefs. Shortly after the war had begun, the United States had found the location of the leaders of Al-Qaeda, but before the United States could capture them, Afghanistan snuck them into Pakistan. After Afghanistan had made the decision, the conflict between them and the United States had grown larger, for as the Afghanistan government had been cooperating with terrorism. Prior to the United States invasion, Afghanistan was already dealing with their own ideological conflicts after their just-ending war with the Soviet Union and their new government leaders. On top of this, the cooperation with al-Qaeda led to the nuclear bombings in Afghanistan. With the United States actions, this brings us back to the fact that the Afghanistan War is a limited war, as the United States' goal was to prevent the Afghanistan government from cooperating with any more terrorists. While this was supposed to be a small and civil war, the events that occurred, specifically Afghanistan's action of working with the terrorists directly, led to the war being more towards the illegal end of the just war theory. To help explain the actions that occurred throughout this war, you can look at it through the levels of analysis that we learned in Module 2. I will walk you through the global level, interstate level, and the individual level that you can see throughout the Afghanistan War. In the broad spectrum, you can look at the attack on the World Trade Center through the global level. The global level would be looking at the transnational issues, which in this case would be terrorism. The attack of the World Trade Center in 2001 by al-Qaeda falls under the act of terrorism and can be acted upon like the United States has done. This level can be seen when the Security Council was looking to see if the United States invading Afghanistan was made legal by the just war theory. You can also look to understand things through the interstate level. The interstate level is looking at issues with alliances, treaties, and war. Prior to the United States invading, the United States government tried to work with Afghanistan to turn over the leader of al-Qaeda, who implemented the attack. Since the Afghanistan government did not cooperate with this command, the United States invaded Afghanistan, which broke out into the Afghanistan War. Looking through this level, you can see that the lack of cooperation and alliance led to this war. This can also be seen when Afghanistan was working with Pakistan to prevent al-Qaeda from being captured. They were both working together as one to hide them. At the interstate level, this would be considered as allies. Lastly, you can look at this war through the individual level. The individual level would be looking at issues within a country's civilian population and through decisions in crisis. After the leaders of al-Qaeda escaped capture by the United States the first time around, capturing them was one of President Obama's first tasks when he was elected as president in 2008. Obama wanted to put the citizens of the United States to ease and maintain peace in the United States during an uneasy time. By putting the citizens first and increasing the number of troops in Afghanistan to capture the al-Qaeda leaders, Obama's decision in crisis can be seen when looking through the individual level of analysis, as he was putting the citizens of his country first. If you are interested in looking deeper into some of the information I provided you, you can look at some of these links here. The last one also goes into deeper conflicts, in which are the reasonings we are still in Afghanistan right now. And here are all the sources that I got all my information from.